Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Israel Brief with me, Rolene Marks, and brought to you by these guys, Lay of the Land. And thank you for your really beautiful messages of support yesterday. It is a very difficult time in Israel at the moment. As I said yesterday, many of us feel that we've gone right back to October the 8th, following the brutal execution of 6 of our hostages by Hamas. And in a sense, it almost feels worse because now we know the magnitude of the crime against humanity committed against so many on the 7th of October. And it is day 333. We still have 101 hostages being held captive. We want them home so desperately now. And they're not just Israeli, and they are not just Jewish. They are Muslim and Christian and Hindu and Buddhist, and from over 20 different countries. One of those 6 hostages who was so brutally executed was Hersh Goldberg-Polin, a dual American-Israeli citizen. But for Israelis, it feels like we're back to October the 8th, but we are weary from war. We've buried too much, and we've buried too many of our precious sons and daughters and canine warriors fighting in defense of the country. We have 101 hostages, and we are still mourning profoundly the murder, rape, mutilation, and torture of over 1,200 people on that Black Sabbath. So let's get into the top story, and I'm going to open it with a little bit of a line coming from a woman who I think is just, I don't think she is of this world, and that is Rachel Goldberg-Polin. Rachel, if you're watching this, our hearts are broken for you and your family. You and John, your family, and so many others have shown the world what it is like to conduct yourselves with grace, dignity, empathy. And we are so sorry that this ended this way for you. And yesterday when you said these words, I don't think that anybody watching that funeral, whether it was here in Israel, at the cemetery or around the world, whose soul wasn't wrenched when you said, okay, sweet boy, go now on your journey. I hope it's as good as the trips you dreamed about, because finally, my sweet boy, finally, you are free. Yesterday, the last 2 remaining hostages that were executed, Carmel and Hersh Goldberg-Polin, were laid to rest. Carmel, a yoga teacher who wanted to complete her final years of occupational therapy studies, and was regarded by many of the hostages who were able to either be released or rescued as an angel for helping them to deal with their experience and their torture every single day. Carmel was laid to rest on Kibbutz Be'eri, where she was kidnapped from that brutal Saturday. And when Hamas terrorists took her out of the kibbutz, she saw the body of her mother Kinneret, who had been so brutally gunned down. She was laid to rest. The funeral was not open to the media, but our hearts wrench all over this country. And at Hersh's funeral in Jerusalem, thousands of Israelis with flags singing Hatikva lined the funeral route of about 3.5 kilometers to the cemetery. President Herzog opened the funeral with his eulogy, asking for forgiveness from Hersh, from Ori, from Alex, from Almog, from Carmel, and from Eden. He asked for forgiveness for not protecting them on the 7th of October, saying the state failed you. We should have protected you on the 7th of October. He asked forgiveness from the Goldberg-Polin family that Hersh was not brought back alive. And he spoke now of the absolute moral and immediate imperative to bring the hostages home. President Herzog not only is our president, but he is our comforter in chief. And many people say, cometh the man, cometh the hour. And certainly for me and for so many Israelis, the president has been exactly that. He is not a political figure, for anyone who wants to have a go at me saying I'm giving a personal opinion. He is our president. He is a figurehead of the state. But he and his elegant wife, Michal, have really been there for the families that are in mourning, the families of the hostages, and for all of us in Israel. Hersh's father, John, his two siblings, Libby and Oli, also addressed the crowds. And Hersh's friends also in highly emotional eulogies spoke about just the essence of what an exceptional human being Hersh Goldberg-Polin was. But it was Rachel whose speech wrenched all of our souls, and you can actually read a copy of it. It is up, the full text of it is up on our Lay of the Land page on Facebook. You can read it. I'll read you some excerpts. She said, "I am so grateful to God. For 23 years, I was privileged to have this most stunning treasure, to be Hersh's mama. I'll take it and say thank you. I just wish it had been for longer." She says, when you wrote to us from the bomb shelter, you had just seen Aner killed. You had lost your arm and you thought you were dying. You wrote to us, "I'm sorry," because you knew how crushing it would be for us to lose you. So you fought to stay alive all this time, but now you are gone. She was referring to Aner Shapiro, and if you're familiar with the events of that day, you will know that Aner threw out about 7 of the hand grenades that were thrown in by Hamas terrorists into the Megunit, into the tiny shelter. I've been in those shelters. They are tiny. They are only designed for about 10 people, but 20, 30, sometimes even 40 crowded in there for safety to hide from the rockets and the terrorists before the 8th grenade blew his arm off. Last night, Hamas released another psychological warfare video. And one thing that struck me, I did see the video, is the high production value of this. This is an enemy who is so well versed in psychological torture and propaganda that the production value on these horrendous videos, apart from the diabolical message, and I'm not going to get into this one because I don't want to traumatize anybody, but they think about them carefully enough to put music, to put graphics. This is what we are dealing with. If you think that these people are freedom fighters, you need to adjust your moral compass. But they featured what they called the last messages from the 6 hostages who were brutally slain, and basically admitted that they murdered them, and intimated that if there were any more Nuseba. Now, Nuseba refers to the incredible rescue operation that took place in June, where 4 hostages were rescued by our elite Yamam forces. Then more hostages would be killed. Those are the monsters that we are dealing with. We now go to the United Kingdom, where the UK Secretary or Foreign Secretary David Lammy announced in Parliament that the UK will be suspending 30 out of 350 defence or military licenses to Israel. Now, this has been met with a lot of opposition by members of opposition parties, even though Lammy swears that this is not an embargo. It has also been heavily criticized by the chief rabbi of the United Kingdom, who actually met with Lammy several weeks ago to discuss how alarmed that we all are at the UK seemingly changing foreign policy towards the state of Israel. Former UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson said that Hamas still holds many innocent hostages, and he said, is Lammy and Starmer abandoning Israel? Do they want Hamas to win? And Prime Minister Netanyahu said, with or without UK weapons, Israel will win this war. The United Nations Security Council is set to gather tomorrow for the first official discussion about the hostages. This follows an urgent letter by Israel's ambassador to the United Nations, Danny Danon. This is the first time the UN Security Council is convening to discuss the issue of hostages. And I think, or at least for me, what the last nearly 11 months have shown us is that the United Nations is rotten with systematic anti-Semitism from the top, Antonio Guterres, right down. Meanwhile, earlier today, the World Health Organization and UNICEF stated that they were ahead of the schedule for vaccinating children in the Gaza Strip with the polio vaccine. And of course, this has been done in conjunction with the IDF's COGAT unit, who are ensuring that over 1 million polio vaccines have gone into the Gaza Strip, and to date, well over 100,000 children in Gaza have received their polio vaccine. Yeah, the next time somebody wants to accuse Israel of genocide, let's remind them that genocidal maniacs do not vaccinate children for infectious diseases. And finally, because we like to end on a positive note, our Paralympians. Last week we told you our Paralympians were competing in Paris, and it has been extraordinary. 6 medals. 6 medals, everybody. Since Thursday, we have 3 golds, 1 silver, and 2 bronzes, and more to go. Guys, you bring us such hope, such joy at a time of deep, deep sorrow. And finally, let's get to the audience question of the day, and it comes from Karen in Johannesburg. How do you manage to report during these dark times? Well, Karen, it's a good question and a very important question. I have a job to do. The journalists are the ones who are bringing the stories of what happened and making sure that the world does not forget. So how do we cope with it? Well, I can tell you one thing for sure. I have a good cry when I finish working, and I deal with my stress however I need to deal with it. But I have a moral imperative to tell the story, to bring the facts and the truth to you. Also, it is important to note that the role of journalists, especially in a robust democracy like Israel, where our freedom of speech is rated very, very highly by Freedom House. And that is, in a democracy, our job is not only to bring you the facts on the ground, but also to shine a light in those dark corners that need exposing to the public who deserve to know. Now, sometimes people might not like what is reported, but the facts are the facts. It's not about personal opinions. It is about what we're seeing on the ground, regardless of how, as individuals, we might feel. Our personal opinions are of little relevance, but reporting what we are seeing with our own eyes on the ground is. And that is why we have a duty to care, a duty and responsibility to make sure that the news is reported fairly, without bias, but without playing favorites as well. So I hope that answers your question, Karen. And also I look forward to a long vacation, whenever that will be. And that brings us to the end of today's edition of the Israel Brief. Please don't forget, if you want to pop your a question, please do so in the comments section. Also, don't forget to check out our website at www.layoftheland.online, our YouTube channel at the Israel Brief. Like, share, subscribe. Our Facebook page is at Lottel Site. Our X channel is at Lay of the Land 5. We're on Instagram at me, Rolene Marks. And thank you guys for helping me out with the technical bits and bobs with this. I really appreciate it. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. God bless you all. And I will see you again tomorrow. Bye for now.